Hi, my good listeners. You're welcome to another episode of Android Programming. Let's learn how to parse or consume a raw JSON and display its values with the RecyclerView. We've learned how to consume JSON from the cloud and store it to database and do some funky things with it. But this time, let's learn how to parse JSON, which is saved or stored in the raw folder of your source. Probably you have it embedded with your source code. This can be tricky, probably if you're facing some kind of exam test. They just give you a raw JSON for you to consume and pass it and display them. So it can be actually taxing if you don't know how to go about it. But in this video, I'm going to explain in details on how to achieve that. I'll be heading straight to Android Studio, where I have the source, and we'll first of all look at the content of the JSON. It's a menu item JSON saved right there in the raw folder, or let's call it the raw package. So let's see the content of this JSON. We have it in key values, just like any other JSON file, and it's an array. From the start, then you notice that it's an array which starts it up, and we have different objects of the array. The first is this chunk, which is the name, cherry avocado, its description, the price, the category, and the photo. That's for that. We have for the other object, which is the fried baby onions. We have it just like that, up down to the toffee pudding. These are key values that we will be passing from the menu item JSON, and we're actually going to be displaying using RecyclerView. In the next tutorial of this, I will actually be teaching you how to integrate a native ads, that's from AdMob, into your RecyclerView. That can be wonderful if you're planning on monetizing your application and you're finding where cool can you place ads that won't actually interfere with users experience. It's going to look natural with your application. Try native ads, and we're going to be implementing that after displaying these values. So let's head straight to the build redo, where we actually need to include some dependencies. The first, we need a card view, because we're actually going to be displaying items in a card. We have the support design, very important. That's where the RecyclerView sits. So you have to add the support design, and we have the constraint layout as well. That's for complex layout. That's fine. So after having these dependencies, you synchronize Gradle and have your application set and ready. From here, I'll be heading straight to the layout. Let's see the layout files we're handling here. We have the activity main, which is the launcher. This is just a simple RecyclerView XML, where we have RecyclerView. We assign an ID called RecyclerView, and the layout with an ID match parents. It's quite simple. And we have the menu item container that's going to actually takes up the card view and the items on each portion of the card. That's why we have it as the parent tag is the support version 7 widget card view, and we gave it some corner radius of 2 dp, and right inside it we have a relative layout to handle the placement of different views. The first is the image view, which is actually by the left corner. We have the text view for the menu item. We have for the price, we have for the category, and we have for the description, for the item description. So we have our items layout setup, where we have the description, the category, the price, and the name. That's the item name. So let's move ahead. Let's look at the Java classes. We have 3 different classes here. The main activity, the POJO, which is the plain old Java object. They are setters and getters for protecting the member variable, which are typically set to private and have a no argument constructor. So we're going to actually be using the POJO to hold on to data and set them appropriately. And we have the RecyclerView Adapter that is actually binding our data together. Let's get to look at the main activity, which is the launcher. And we have the onCreate. However, we set the content view to the activity main, and we need to initialize the recycler view, which we actually declared it over here as a global, and we set as fixed size to be true. Now we need a layout manager for the recycler view. That's why we opt for the linear layout manager. You can set the grid, you can set the staggered grid, but we want to display an ads right there in the linear layout. It's very much pleasant there. And we have the adapter. We need to call the adapter by we're going to set the adapter based on the value of the adapter got here. And we need to also pass two parameters into the adapter, this, which is the context, and the list item, which is the recycler view items, which we have it as a list, object. You'll see how we're actually going to use the POJO to actually convert this list object array, into the POJO or set and get. So you can actually first of all use an object from here. When you get to your adapter, call on the POJO to bind them up. We'll get there. Now we have another method called add menu item from JSON, but we are not going to go through that first. The first method we need to look at is reading the JSON data from file, which can actually throw an input-output exception. That's the IO exception, and you need to catch that. Now we created the input stream and we set it to null initially. We instantiate the stream builder, but we have an object called builder. Now we have our try and catch method. Now in the try, the JSON data string, we declare a JSON data string and we give it null. So let's see how we can actually put values into this null container. In the input stream, now you're trying to use the input stream, we get the resources and you open the raw resource, which is the raw folder over here, and you call on the menu items, which is the menu item JSON. And see how we made reference to that. Now we need a buffer reader to read through the JSON file. We instantiate the buffer reader. We declare a new input stream reader, whereby we're passing the input stream as a parameter and also the encoded format, that's the UTF-8, as the format we're using. Now a while loop, while the JSON string, which is actually set to null, equals to the buffered reader, you read the new line. If it's not equals to null, if it's not equals to null, you append each JSON string to the builder. That's what you're going to do. So if it's not equals to null, you append it to the builder. And finally, if the input stream is not equals to null, you close it up. But if it's null, you have to do this over again. It must not be null. So now you need to return the string builder. So that's what you return, and we're going to actually pass this method, the read JSON data from file, down to the add menu item from JSON. Now you've been able to read the JSON data from the file, but you've not done anything with the data. Now you need to now add those data to the menu items which you actually got. So we have also a try and catch block, and we declare a JSON data string. JSON data string here. This time the JSON data string is going to actually read JSON data from file. So we've passed a value right inside that string called JSON data string. So that is actually going to trigger this method, to actually return a string builder. Can you see that? That's cool. Now we call on the JSON array. We're actually going to look at the hierarchy of the array. In previous or in subsequent tutorial, we're going to look at deeper JSON formats. About we're going to have nested JSON, and we're going to actually use this approach to analyze each one of them. We are not going to actually use any other third-party library like retrofit. This is not retrofit. This is not volley. No, we're just going to use the normal HTTP, the JSON array, and the object. And this is quite solid rock, because from here you can easily save your data straight down to the database without any much of headache, and you use your content provider to call data from the database. So from there you can even create your sync adapter on that. That's the Google way. Anyway, let's put it that way. That's the way Android, from the documentation you get it that way. That's the way it's been let's say it's been recommended to pass JSON values to save data to your device, Android application, and do sort it. So we have our JSON array that takes on the JSON data string. That's cool. Now we need to loop through this array. It's an array, Thereby we get the length, which is the argument for looping, and we start our counter from 0, because array starts from 0 anyway. Now we have to pick on each object, because in an array we have an object. Just like, let me show you this. This is an array. Once you see this bracket, is an array. But now when you see the curly brace, that's objects. Array is a bracket, curly brace, they are objects. So get that stick back to the main activity. Now we are talking about the objects in the array. Now we get the menu item JSON array. We get the JSON object, which is the index. The I is the index, so we want to pick from one. First object, second, third, fourth, fifth, just like that. This is a full object for here. Full first object, second, so it's been depicted while iterating with the I, which is the counter, continually like that. So now, after we might have handled the object, we need to take care of the key values. Let's look at how we actually do that. Now we declared strings. The first string is the menu item name to hold the name, which actually get the string name. Once we've instantiated an object called menu item object to actually call this. We have for the description, we have for the item price, the category, the item image name. So if you notice, look at the keys. We are getting the value from that key. The name, the description, it must be the same with what you have with your menu item JSON. Can you notice the name, description, price, category, and photo? They must be the same. Once you make something out there, it's going to throw an exception, or it's going to throw an error that is not getting it. Now we need the POJO to pass in those data straight up. We're actually not creating to database. If at the point we're trying to store this to database, we continue here. Those data will be stored to the database. That's just how it flows. That's how it works. Solid rock. Anywhere recommended. That's how it flows. Now we're just using the POJO. So we're trying to push it down to the POJO. Let's get to look at the structure of our POJO. It has a constructor, and we have the private feeds, as I've said. Sometimes you might decide not to have a constructor, but we need a constructor here. Or you might decide to have an empty constructor rather, but we need a constructor here. Constructor with values that we actually pick up the name, the description, price, the category, and the image name, and set them appropriately with the variable declared up there. That's just what that is doing. Back to the main activity. Now we set those values into the POJO, just like you've seen. And from here, we call the RecyclerView items. Let's get to look at that's the list object. The RecyclerView item over here. It's the list object which we actually instantiate as an array list. That's cool. And we add up the POJO. And can you get that? So the RecyclerView object view items have a copy of the POJO. That's cool. And we need to catch up for input output exception. Not only that, we have the JSON exception as well. So we have to catch that and just log that to the log. That's a console that unable to pass JSON file, and the exception that triggers probably is an input exception, input output exception. Probably the file is not present, or there's error while passing the JSON. So that's just what that is doing. So let's get to look at the onCreate that is actually going to trigger. That's the main focal point. finally, we need to add the menu item from JSON method to trigger so that that's going to run. These will be triggered to run this, and these will actually trigger this method to run. So that's how it flows. Now we have our recycler, as I've said earlier, the adapter and everything. So we can easily pass in the RecyclerView item because we've been able to add the POJO values together. That's cool. The main activity set ready. It's cool. Now let's get to look at the RecyclerView adapter that's actually going to bind data together. Just like any other RecyclerView adapter, I actually commented out some aspects of this code. The reason for commenting is these are the integration of the native art, which I will be explaining in the next video, so that we'll be able to integrate native art into the RecyclerView list. Now we have the declared RecyclerView item is an object generic class of a list view. That's cool. And we have our constructor, the RecyclerView adapter, that takes two parameters: the context, which is like this particular class, and the list object, the RecyclerView items, that we passed to the RecyclerView adapter from the main activity. Now we initialize the fields. That's fine. Once we have that initialized, we set up the class, which provides a reference to each view in the menu item. We call it the menu item view order. You must have a view order. It's the view order that declares the fields right there in the menu item, and from there you can have access to bind it. Do you understand what the view order does? And from the view order, you can even extend more, probably click more, and share data to another activity to launch. Now we declare those fields that we will need to pass: the item name, the description, the price, category, and image. And we initialize, call its appropriate IDs, so that we'll be able to have it usable, and that is in the menu item view order constructor. Perfect. We need the get item count. Let's count the size of the list that came in. We have a list that came in from the main activity, which is the RecyclerView items. So we have to get the size. That's fine. And we're going to create a new view for a menu item, which we actually use that in case, when you say case, so that in the first case you run this, in the second case argument you run that, because we are actually going to integrate native art. So that's why we actually made it be in case. Now if you look at the menu item view type is in the first case, and it has an integer value of 0, the native will be 1, but we are not going to cover native now, so let's stick to what we're doing. We have the menu item view type declared. Now the default, fine, is the default, made it the default. We call the view, which is the menu item layout, and inflate. We need to inflate the layout, the menu item container that we've explained in the XML, so that we can be able to bind data to it. That's fine. Now in our unbind view order, let's bind data. This is actually going to invoke the layout manager. It takes two parameters: the order, the view order, and the position. So there must be a position, so that it's not going to just pick data and fix them up in an unordered manner. It's going to actually assign data to each position of the card. Now the first case is the menu item. When it's the menu item, we have the menu item view order be initialized here, and we have the POJO as well, be initialized, and we have the object from the POJO called menu item, and now we need to get position. This is a very good way to actually bind data to your adapter. Very recommended. Now we get a position, which is very important as well. So let's get the menu item image resource ID. We need the image resource ID. Probably if you are actually passing images, I actually don't have images right in the drawable, so we are not actually going to bind images, so we're still going to leave that out. But we need to bind the menu item details. That is like the image name, the item image name, the item name rather, the price, the category, and the description. So this is how you actually bind them to the menu item view order. Whereby you now call the menu item get name. menu item get name, which is from the POJO anyway. So it's not imagined, it's actually coming from the POJO. To get the name, to get the price, to get the category, to get the description. Since you've passed data down from the main activity to the POJO, so the POJO is now getting the get method that we use right there. You see? But if you're trying to set data as well, probably you need a return type. You need to set data. So that works. That's fine. So we have that binds data to the adapter. So can you see the journey? The journey comes from the raw JSON, whereby we have an array of different objects, and in the objects we have different key value pairs. Cool. And in our main activity, we read that JSON. We read the JSON data from file. We'll be able to pass it, and from there we can easily iterate through the JSON array and point at the objects and call different keys which we need their values, and we save it right there in the POJO, the plain old Java object file, so that we can use it in the view adapter. So we pass the data down to the adapter, so the adapter has a data not null. You must make sure that the adapter is not getting a null value. These are errors that you can run across when you're dealing with data, null pointer exception. So make sure once you have that, once you see that, definitely you know that there's nothing coming. So you have to debug and find what is actually happening and get that down to the RecyclerView Adapter. RecyclerView Adapter plays with the data and set them appropriately right there in here. So that's just how the flow is. You don't need any permission, you don't need any third-party library. This is basically from out of the box from Android, from the support design, from the app compact Java utils. These are where we actually drive all the functionality from. So this is quite different from using external libraries. So you can also try your application this way if you need. It depends on the resources you need. If you need a more stronger base, you can go for this. Consume your data, save to a database. Use a content provider to call data, so that you can even share your data to other applications. And use a sync adapter if you need to actually sync data in a periodic time, so that you can have a solid background, a solid base for the application. So this is just how it flows. I'll be showing the screencast and I'll be uploading the source code as well. So don't go anywhere. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful time. Catch me up in the next part, where we're going to be integrating native apps into this recycling.